start reading my Bible and those kind of things. And that's actually what I chose to do. So I got up at 4:30. I would start out was reading devotionals. I'd read commentaries. I would do these Bible studies that I found. And I started with that. And then soon enough, I felt the Lord was shifting me and saying, hey, I want you to quit reading the devotionals. I want you to quit reading the commentaries, quit doing all the Bible studies, and I want you to get in the Word for yourself. I want you to start reading the Bible for you. Hey guys, welcome back to the Cory Lee Show. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about walking in wisdom, practical application of how to walk in wisdom in this day and age. And so I thought I would kick it off with a little bit of my journey in the Book of Proverbs. And so I find it interesting. Sometimes you can learn a lot by hearing people's stories. And, you know, if you've been in church for a while, you hear people talk about you got to get into the secret space or spending time in the presence of the Lord and those kind of things. And sometimes you can hear that and say, well, what does that actually look like? And I thought I would kick it off with my journey with that. And so my background is actually in the medical field, in the physical therapy and in gym space. And so at a time we had a CrossFit gym and I would get up at 4:30 in the morning. I would go coach our CrossFit classes. Then I would go into our physical therapy clinic and work there and then go back to our CrossFit gyms. But I was used to getting up at this 4:30 time to go and coach this. And soon enough, we got a couple coaches in to help me out. And I did not have to be there for the early mornings. But what I chose to do was, I had this choice. I could sleep in a little bit, or I could continue getting up at 4:30 in the morning and I could actually start reading my Bible and those kind of things. And that's actually what I chose to do. So I got up at 4:30. I would start reading really where I started at was reading devotionals. I'd read commentaries. I would do these Bible studies that I found. And I started with that. And then soon enough, I felt the Lord was shifting me and saying, hey, I want you to quit reading the devotionals. I want you to quit reading the commentaries, quit doing all the Bible studies, and I want you to get in the Word for yourself. I want you to start reading the Bible for you. When you read all these commentaries and all these devotionals, you're gaining revelation from what I've given to other people. But I have revelation specific for you. And I was like, okay, well, let's do this. And well, for me, I never considered myself very smart. And so I was like, well, you know what? Let's start with some wisdom. Why not start with Proverbs? And one of the things I love about Proverbs is most of the Proverbs are written by King Solomon. King Solomon was the son of King David. David was one of Israel's greatest kings. And if you know much about the background there, David was the king of Israel. And there's a verse of scripture that says, in the springtime, when kings went out to war, David stayed at the house. How about that? See, David wasn't where he should have been, which led him to do what he shouldn't have been doing. He was hanging out at the house while his army was out at war in the springtime. When kings go out to war, David stayed at the house. And so he's chilling at the house. He finds himself walking over the rooftop. He looks down. He sees this beautiful lady taking a bath. And he says, who is that right there? They come back to him and says, that's Bathsheba. That is the wife of Uriah the Hittite. Here's what's interesting. Uriah is listed as one of David's mighty men. David's 30 mighty men. So these were the giant killers and mighty men of valor. These were David's best of the best. This is one of his buddies, right? His top 30 men, David's mighty man, Uriah the Hittite. This is his wife. Well, what David does, he calls for her. And he has an affair, and she becomes pregnant. And so what David does, he tries to conceal it. He brings Uriah home and says, hey, you know what? Hang out here and go hang out with your wife. He doesn't do it. So the next night he tries to get Uriah drunk. So he'll go spend time with his wife. He still doesn't do it. And so finally, David writes a letter to the captain of the army, Joab, and says, hey, put Uriah on the very front lines where the battle is the fiercest. And when the enemy comes out, tell the rest of the army to step back. And in this way, David killed Uriah. That is Solomon's dad, David, the king of Israel. And so Bathsheba, she becomes pregnant, and the prophet comes to him and says, hey, the baby's going to die. Later on, he says, hey, you're going to have another son, and this son, his name is going to be Solomon. And Solomon is going to be the next king of Israel. The reason I'm bringing all that up before we jump into some of these proverbs here is I want us to understand that from the very moment Solomon is born, on day one, he is taught how to lead an entire nation. He is taught leadership from day one, not just any kind of leadership, but leading an entire nation. And so when you read Proverbs and you filter it through the lens of leadership, there's some pretty interesting things that stand out to you. The Hebrew word for proverb is actually the word mashal. I think that's how you say it. I don't speak Hebrew. It could actually be like or something, right? But mashal, and it's a homonym with two different meanings. The first meaning is what we typically think of when we think of a proverb, which means a wise saying. But the other meaning of the word mashal is to rule, to reign, and to take dominion. When you begin to read these wise sayings, when you begin to read and apply these proverbs, these wise sayings into your life, they can actually help you to begin to take dominion and rule and to reign in your own life. In fact, I want to read you Proverbs chapter 1 in the Passion Translation. And this is how it kicks off. Here are kingdom revelations, words to live by, and words of wisdom given to empower you to reign in life. Written as Proverbs by Israel's King Solomon, David's son. Within these sayings will be found the revelation of wisdom and the impartation of spiritual understanding. Use them as keys to unlock the treasures of true knowledge. Those who cling to these words will receive discipline to demonstrate wisdom in every relationship and to choose what is right and just and fair. These proverbs will give you great skill to teach the immature and to make them wise, to give youth the understanding of their design and their destiny. Man, that's good. For the wise, these proverbs will make you even wiser, and for those with discernment, you will be able to acquire brilliant strategies for leadership. These kingdom revelations will break open your understanding to unveil the deeper meaning of parables, poetic riddles, and epigrams, and to unravel the words and the enigmas of the wise. We cross the threshold of true knowledge when we live in obedient devotion to God. See, stubborn know-it-alls will never stop to do this, for they scorn true wisdom and knowledge. Woo, doggy, man, listen to that. That's good stuff. And so in today's episode, I want to share with you a couple of my favorite proverbs. Actually, my journey in this was, like I was saying, I decided to start reading my Bible. I got in the Bible. I started reading Proverbs. And so I would actually read a proverb every day. There are 31 chapters in Proverbs. Most months, if you weren't familiar with the calendar, have 31 days. And so I would read a proverb a day. Once the next month started, I would actually start all the way back over. And sometimes I would start with a different translation and I would just go. And then soon enough, I would actually start reading these proverbs out loud. Well, then I would begin to pray these proverbs out loud. I would take what I read and I would pray them. So what we just read right there in Proverbs 1, it says, those who cling to these words will receive discipline to demonstrate wisdom in every relationship and to choose what is right and just and fair. And so I would turn that into a prayer. And so, Father, may your words cling to my heart. May they bypass the mind and cling to my heart. Lord, I grant you full access to give me discipline. And Lord, may your wisdom be in me to help me to discern how to lead every relationship. Help me to lead the people I lead with truth and justice and do what is fair and right. Break open the understanding of my heart to acquire brilliant strategies for leadership. And so I would just do that, right? And then I would actually start sitting down and I would begin to write what I felt like the Lord was teaching me. And that's actually what led to my book, Leading with Insight, 31 Days of Wisdom. That book actually came out of my quiet time with the Lord. I'd never intended it to be a book. It was just things that the Lord was revealing to me. And as I look back, I thought, wow, you know what? I feel like this could add value to other people. And so we published it, and you can get that on Amazon. You can get it on my website, coryleeleadership.com/leadingwithinsight. But here are a couple of my favorite Proverbs. And this one is Proverbs 10, verse 7. It says, "The reputation of the righteous becomes a sweet memorial to him, while the wicked life only leaves a rotten stench." How about that? See, you know what? People may not remember all the things that you do. They may not remember all your accolades, all your awards you got. They may not remember all the things you said, but they 100% will remember how you made them feel. A few years ago, I got a call from a friend of mine in high school, and her mom had just passed away. But before she passed away, her mom asked her to reach out to me and to speak at her funeral. Her mom was my high school math teacher. Hadn't seen her in 20 years, hadn't talked to her in 20 years. And I go to the funeral. I'm sitting in the funeral home. I'm looking at the obituary, and in the obituary, there at the top of there are these 2 dates. And I started looking around. I look around the funeral home, and I realize that every single person there is there to celebrate that space in between those 2 dates, because that space represents the impact that she had on the lives of every single person in the room. And so what I want to ask you is, what do you want that space to say about you? This proverb says, "The reputation of the righteous becomes a sweet memorial to him, but the wicked life leaves a rotten stench." It's like a rotten stench when people talk about you or when they are reminded of you. It's a rotten stench. It's a bad feeling. But I know that's none of you guys, so I ain't even worried about y'all, right? I want you to think about this. How many of you, if we were in the room and I asked you to show your hands, how many of you know someone by the name of Josh or Joshua? Probably most everybody. What about the name Caleb? Do you know anybody or know of someone by the name of Caleb? Probably so. How about this one, all right? Have you ever heard of anyone by the name of Shemua or Shaphath? Or what about Igal or Palti? What about this one? Gadiel or Gadi or Amiel or Sether or Nabal? Anybody know anybody named Nabal? You know anybody named Nabal? What about Guyel? You know somebody named Guyel? See, all those names I just listed off, those were leaders of the tribes of Israel. There were 10 of them. The children of Israel, they have been in captivity for 400 and something years. The Lord led them out through Moses to the promise, the thing that their ancestors had been promised, a promised land, a land flowing with milk and honey. It had been in their family through generations that they would have this land. Well, they come out of Egypt, they go through the wilderness, and y'all, they are on the threshold of their promise. They are on the threshold of their destiny. And they send out 12 spies to go spy out the land. 2 of them come back and say, "Let's go take them. We got this." Their names are Joshua and Caleb. 10 of them says, "No, we are grasshoppers in our own eyes. We can't do it. We shouldn't do it. God, they're going to kill us. We better not do it." The 10 names I just asked you, Shemua, Shaphath, Igal, Paltiah, Gidiel, Gadi, Amiel, Sether, Nabi, Guyel. Those are all 10 of the people who bought into fear rather than the promise. I wonder if there's a reason you've never heard anybody by the name of those names. And you have heard of people who have the boldness of Joshua and Caleb. What is your reputation going to be? The next one is Proverbs 14:4. It says, "Without oxen, a stable stays clean, but you need a strong ox for a large harvest." You know what? This is during the agricultural age, but the wisdom of this, it speaks to me so much, right? Like, hey guys, I hope you are enjoying this episode of the Cory Lee Show. Y'all, I am on a mission to build leaders and to transform culture. So if you're looking for a speaker who speaks directly to the heart, a mentor to come alongside you and your team, or if you're in a position where you're looking for a personal coach who embraces where you are and also believes in who you could become, then I would be honored to walk this path with you. Simply reach out to me on my email at cory@coryleeleadership.com. Look, let's make your vision a reality. Contact me, and together we'll navigate the path from aspiration to achievement. Your transformation, it starts now. In this agriculture age, if you wanted a big harvest, If you wanted a lot of fruits and vegetables, then you need some animals to help you plow up the ground, to till up the ground, to harvest all those kind of things. And an ox, you needed an ox. Well, that ox will help you to do the task, but you know what? When you have an ox, you got to take care of an ox. You got to clean up some messes after an ox. You got to make sure the ox is fed. And so if you don't want to take care of an ox, then you must not want a harvest. And so I think we're in this day and age where we feel like everything should come easy. And that's why I agree with John Maxwell. He says, everything worthwhile is uphill. And most people have uphill dreams, but they have downhill habits. They think it should come easy. They coast downhill instead of climb uphill. I love one of the things I heard John say. John is he's a speaker, goes all over the world, has written all kind of books. And he was at an event and this long line of people wanting to get his autograph. And a guy comes up to him and says, "Man, I would love to do what you do, John. I'd love to speak and travel the world and do what you do." And John looked at him and says, "Would you be willing to do what I did in order to do what I do?" And see, I think it's very easy to see someone who's gaining success, whatever you define as success, and say, "I want to do that. I believe I could do that." But you have no idea what they've done behind the scenes. Joe Frazier has a quote: "Champions aren't made in the ring, they're merely recognized there." It speaks into this, that it's what you do in the dark that will be exposed in the light. The work you put in will eventually be exposed. The work you did not put in will eventually be exposed. And so if you want to, without oxen, a stable stays clean, but you need a strong ox for a large harvest. Here's the next one. Proverbs 16:3, it says, "Commit your work to the Lord and your thoughts will be established." I love this quote. And this is for me, this is one of those promises that I actually cling to. I was praying one day and I felt the Lord say, "What do you think would happen if just a small percentage of the church fully believed my promises?" What do you think would happen if a small percentage of my church fully believed my promises? And man, I was like, wow, what if I fully believed, right? And so this is one of those promises to me. It says, "Commit your work to the Lord and your thoughts will be established." It's interesting that when I commit what I do to the Lord, that something shifts in my thought pattern. Something shifts in my thought life when I commit what I'm doing to Him. I lay down my desires to pick up His. I lay down my agenda to pick up His when I commit my work to Him. The next one is actually two together. These are two of my favorites too. This is Proverbs 17:3 and Proverbs 27:21. Proverbs 17:3, it says, "The crucible for silver and the furnace for gold, but the Lord tests the hearts." Proverbs 27:21, it starts out the same exact way. It says, "The crucible for silver and the furnace for gold, but people are tested by their praise." How about that? I think these two side by side. Well, when you know something about purifying gold and silver, what you do is you take that gold, that silver, and you put it into the furnace to heat it up. And the heat causes the impurities to rise to the top. You take those impurities off, and now you've got pure gold. Well, that's what these two proverbs are talking about. Are the highs and the lows of life reveal the impurities in the heart. It tests the heart. And look, when the Lord tests the heart, it's because He wants to deal with something within the heart. He's not trying to shame or guilt, but He's like, "Cory, there's some things right in there that I want to bring to the service because I want to remove. I want to heal those areas of your life." And many times those areas are revealed during the highs and the lows of life. During the low part, how do I respond when things do not go my way? How do I respond when it's just been one of those kind of Mondays, right? How do I respond when things are not going my way or bad things happen? It reveals something at the heart. On the flip side, how do I respond when I am starting to get the accolades? How do I respond when people start giving me the compliments and the awards? Do I do feigned humility and say, "Oh shucks, oh golly gee willikers, no, not me, no, keep it coming, keep it coming. No, don't stop. Hey, keep it coming, right?" This false humility thing of, "Oh shucks, golly gee willikers, Bob," right? Like, that's a false humility, and it shows something about my identity in my heart. Do I see myself as an orphan, or do I see myself as a son of the Most High? And I love something that I heard a guy say one time. He said, "In public, simply say thank you. And in private, come to the Father and say, 'Father, I receive this today and I lay it at your feet. I give it back to you.'" How about that? I find it interesting that what we actually praise reveals what's in our heart too. I think how do we respond when other people are praised for the things we think we should be praised for? All of that reveals some things in the heart. The Lord is interested in your heart. Next one is Proverbs 18:21. It says, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who live by it will eat of its fruit." Man, the words you say have quite an impact. This proverb has helped me to become very aware of the things that not only I say, but also the things that I make agreement with. For instance, if somebody says, "Well, I'm getting sick, man, that sickness is just going around. Sickness is going around. Everybody's getting the flu." And used to, I would say, "Yeah, man, I know what you mean." And that was me making an agreement with that, man. No longer do I do that. I become aware of what I make agreement with. It's like, no, I ain't getting sick. For those that have hung out with me, you've heard me say that. No, I ain't getting sick. I won't get sick, right? And so the words that I say have power. The next one is Proverbs 20:21. It says, "An inheritance gained too quickly will not be blessed in the end." Man, this is so good. It reminds me of stories you hear of people who have either won the lottery or maybe athletes who become multimillionaires overnight. And then 6 to 7 years later, they're dead broke. And there's like, how in the world can that be possible? Well, they had become bigger on the outside than they were on the inside. What this is saying is if you gain your inheritance too quickly, you don't have the character to sustain it. You don't have the habits, the disciplines. You haven't become big enough on the inside to be able to handle the outside weight. So that's why we always want to be bigger on the inside than on the outside. Here's one more, and then I really want to land this plane. Don't wear yourself out trying to get rich. Be wise enough to know when to quit. In the blink of an eye, wealth will disappear, for it will sprout wings and fly away like an eagle. That's Proverbs 23:4-5. And then there's a proverb that goes along with that. It says, "It really is senseless to work so hard from early morning till late at night, toiling to make a living for fear of not having enough. God can provide for his lovers even while they sleep." That's so good. Here's where I want to end this at. I call it in my book. I call this chapter "The High Calling of a Leader," and it's Proverbs 31, and Proverbs 31 is famous for the Proverbs 31 woman. There's entire women's ministry built around this one proverb, but there's something at the very beginning that I want to share with you guys, and I'm going to just read just a bit. This is Proverbs 31 from the Passion Translation, and it says, "King Lebionla's royal words of wisdom. These are the inspired words my mother taught me. Listen, my dear son, son of my womb. You are the answer to my prayers, my son, so keep yourself sexually pure from the promiscuous and wayward woman. Do not waste the strength of your anointing on those who ruin kings. You will live to regret it. For you are a king, Lemuel, and it is not fitting for a king to be drunk on wine or for rulers to crave alcohol. For when they drink, they forget justice and ignore the rights of those they lead, those who depend on them for leadership. Strong drink is given to the terminally ill who are suffering at the brink of death. Wine is for those in depression, and in order to drown their sorrows, let them drink and forget their poverty and their misery. But you are a king who speaks up on behalf of the disenfranchised and pleads for the legal rights of the defenseless and those who are dying. Be a righteous king, judging on behalf of the poor and interceding for those most in need." And so a couple years ago, me and our oldest son, we went on a man trip, right? He loves soccer, and he's gotten us all into liking soccer. And so we went to watch a professional soccer match and really just spend time. But one of the other things we really wanted to focus in on was I wanted to share with him what some of our family values were, where we stood at on cultural hot topics such as abortion and premarital sex and drugs and alcohol and those kind of things. I wanted him to see where we stood on those issues, why we believed what we do through a biblical lens. And then I also shared with him what culture had to say about that. And I let him know that although culture may choose to believe a different way, in this house, we are not going to believe that way. In this house, these are the things, our morals, these are our guiding principles. This is what us in this family will choose to believe, even if somebody else chooses to believe something differently. And the reason I bring that up with this on Proverbs 31, the king's mother, the queen, is giving him the same advice. She's saying, hey, let other people forget their poverty and misery by getting drunk, but that's not for you. You are a king. Now, Lemuel, that may be of something you used to do. That may be something that you used to engage in, but now you are in a position of authority. You are in a position of responsibility, and you no longer get to act like that. There are people depending on your wisdom, on your justice, and on your leadership. And to me, that begs the question of why. Like, why do all the other people get to do whatever they want to do? Why do other people get to have all the fun? You know, I get people come up to me all the time and talk about, I want to be a leader, right? I want to be a leader. And sometimes I like to ask them, why? Why you want to be a leader? I think that's great. We need leaders who lead at a high level with pure hearts and clean hands, but why? And sometimes they just start talking about the perks and the position and the power and the prestige that comes with being a leader. And there are perks and power and prestige and those kind of things that come with being a leader. But there's also a price to being a leader. And that price is responsibility. That price is in service to other people. When you get into leadership, you no longer get to choose certain activities that you used to engage in. There are certain activities that no longer serve you. And that's what I was trying to tell our son. That is what the queen is trying to tell this king. Here's where I want to land this bird at. I live here in Mississippi. We are in the Bible Belt. Every single person and their mama believes in Jesus, okay? Everybody says they believe in Jesus. What they do is they know facts and figures of his life. There is a difference between being a believer and a follower. There is a difference between believing in Jesus, believing that he is who he says he was, believing that he was a historical figure, and making him Lord of your life. There is a huge difference between a fully surrendered life. And man, that is so good. Whenever I lay down my agenda to pick up his, when I lay down my desires to pick up his, it is so fun. And so here's, if you're a Christian, if you're a believer in Jesus, I want to encourage you to engage with me on this. If this is not your thing, hey, it's all good. I would challenge you to sit with that and what do I truly believe about Jesus? But if you claim to be a Christian, here's something I want you to do. I want you to close your eyes. If you're in a spot, don't do this if you're driving, okay? But close your eyes, and I want you to ask Jesus: is there any area of my heart that I have locked away from you? Is there any area of my life that I have hidden from you? Is there any area of my life? Is there any hurts, past experiences that I have hidden from you? And whatever he reveals to you, I want you to label it and imagine standing before a door and that label on the door. Maybe you have multiple doors and each door is labeled. And I want you to imagine yourself standing before those doors with Jesus and hand him over the keys to those doors. And I want you to pray this out loud. Jesus, I grant you full access to this area of my heart. I grant you full access to these hurts, to heal them. Expose them to your light and to your love. I welcome you into these areas, and I hand them over to you. Jesus, would you fill this area with your light and your love? Fill this area of my heart with your Holy Spirit. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your goodness. And so, hey guys, I hope this podcast, I know, is a little bit different. I hope it's added value to you. If you prayed that prayer, hey, I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear what that was like for you. I would love to get some feedback, or if you need walking through with that, feel free to reach out to me, Cory at CoryLeeLeadership.com. I would love to walk alongside of you with that. I hope this has added value to you. Make sure you like and subscribe so you can stay up to date with any of the latest episodes of The Cory Lee Show. Hope you guys have a great day, and God bless. 3, 2, 1. Okay. Thanks for joining me today. I hope I have added value to you. And if you have found value in this episode, let me know. Drop a comment and make sure you share with a friend or family member. See you next episode.